all, my name is Tawess, and today we're going to have a slightly quicker video looking at the adder, also known as the puma. And this little mech, looking at it, I can only see one thing. That's a turtle, especially the head poking out in front. I mean, there's not much more to say about it. It looks like a turtle. Also, reading up on this mech, I found out that it was often in lore, it's often used as a platform for clan warriors to train against inner sphere mechs. So it's an inner sphere proxy. And I mean, if you are a ultra aggressive warrior culture, I think a turtle would make sense if you want to send a sort of indirect insult to your enemies. Since a turtle is a very defensive creature, in popular culture at least. So that was the idea. An angry little mech painted as a turtle. And we start out with some oak brown on the sort of shell thing part, the top of the mech. And it is one of these very flat paints. And as before noted, if I don't specify anything else, assume that it is Army Painter paints, because that is the staple right now. So, looking at this mech as a sort of proxy for inner sphere mechs, I decided to combine the style I use when painting inner sphere mechs with the style I use for painting clan mechs, which is taking a bit more beat up approach than I would usually do when I'm painting a clan mech. And how this can be achieved is mostly, and I do mean that it's mostly through layering lighter colors to simulate the effect of having panel lines and panel edge shadows. I don't know, word is completely lost. But yeah, you're gonna see later on. As a base, oak brown, and for the green, army green. And this is a really flat green. Very smooth, very silky, but it's flat. There is not much hoping for that one. And for intents and purposes, this is your standard military color, your general infantry color. I mean, it is what it is. So, laying it on pretty thick. Now, we're gonna have an issue with this video, and that is the fact that my camera decided to just kill large swath of recordings. So every now and then I'm gonna have a great jump from one thing to another, and there's gonna be no intermittent showing what we did, and we have to live with that. But as I say, this green, very flat. This brown, very flat. That's what we want. We want flat colors for this first layer. As you can see here, we have been picking out the panels on top with monster brown, which is a much brighter sort of tan deserty color. And as you can see, the idea is to pick out the panels and leave the lines intact with the darker brown, giving it a sense of depth that you usually get by applying a wash or a ink. But as I say, we want to try something different here. We're going to try and give it a bit more of a rustic feel. So we're going to combine this with some edge highlighting later on. And I said that content is mostly gone, so it's going to jump directly into the end result. But I basically go over the entire top with this monster brown and then apply a mix of monster brown and combat fatigues to get this lighter color, give it a worn, shipped look without being shipped. I think it turned out pretty well. We then take a mix of combat fatigues and army green, and do the same highlighting of all the panels on the green. And why I'm using combat fatigues is to get a slightly similar tone in the highlights, because it ties it all together. And this first stage is basically just going over all the panels, leaving the gaps precisely as we did with the brown. And you want the color to be slightly diluted here. You don't want it too strong, and it's going really smooth, but not runny. It can't be runny because then it's going to run into all the lines within the panel, so you're going to have to redo the entire thing or add inks afterwards. So you want a slightly smoother but not runny color. This also means you're mostly going to have to go over 2 or 3 times. I had to do this time because the mix I ended up with was very flat and dried, a lot less vibrant. Not only a little bit vibrant, but a lot less vibrant, leading to a very interesting 3D effect where you couldn't really see the color on the panels until you flipped in light. But the idea anyway is that you can control how deep into the shadows you go. As you can see here, I'm going right up to the edge, but I could also show to leave a lot more shadow, or even come in after with a slightly darker green and add a gradient to the shadows. And that is kind of fun. But as you can see, I have to go over these same areas again to add some more solidity to it. Because as I said, the idea is that it should look worn, lived in. Not fresh off the factory line, but lived in. And I hope I pull this off by the end. But entirely, you go over all the greens doing this. On a more human character, this is not a good idea because you're going to have a very blocky, almost cel shaded look. But on the mechs, which are mechanical, it works. They're also quite large, so you never really have to worry about light in the same way you would on a human, because they are big flat tanks. They create some of their own shadows. Now for last stage, I went over all the panel lines on the green with pure combat fatigues to make sure that you have a bit more crispness in the I would say shadows, but it's not the shadow that are crisper, it is the highlights. So panel edges and places where light would sort of hit. It makes for a rather interesting. Now, I diluted this paint way too much. It did not behave at all, so I had to go over more than 2 times. Some places 3 times, and I didn't like that at all. But if you do as I say and not as I do, you want a little bit of thicker color, not entirely diluted, because then you have to do a lot of work for nothing. Especially as this, let's say, armor paints start dry a bit flat, muted to begin with. But that is pretty much the entire thing with the green. We have painted the cockpit with white to get a good contrast there, and so far it's looking pretty good. It's not entirely awful. I added the cockpit green, as again, video this disappeared, by using goblin green and jungle green to get a sort of 2-tone effect, illuminating, emulating color shift in the glass. Then it's onto pure red. I've slightly diluted pure red to get the lasers, and we're adding a void shield blue to the PPCs with a dash of dark tone later, and another applications of void shield to just make the PPCs on this one pop. Yeah, this is a tiny mech carrying 2 PPCs. It is apparently hot as all come help. And yeah, this, as you can see, is just a simple dab and then a wipe, and it's a good way to get excess ink off. You have small sharp areas, just use your thumbs, wipe it off. Perfectly functional method. And we finish, as I said, with some void shield blue to just add a little bit of pop to it. Now, as I say, normally I would also go over this if it was a clan mech with a dash of Nuln Oil Gloss from Citadel, because there's a gloss varnish feeling to it without being a varnish. But as I said, this is not supposed to be a clan mech per se, I mean, it is a clan mech, but it's not supposed to be that. Emulate inner sphere. So we didn't do that this time. That meant I had to punch a bit more with the shadows. So, wrapping at the feet, and I know some people are gonna ask, but what about a base? I don't like doing bases. And it's not just me sheeping out. It is that once I put a base on it, my mind sort of locks it into, oh well, that's a biome it's in. And then if I put on that other biome, it looks weird and it annoys me. I know, it's a thing. Not everyone thinks that way. I do. So I kind of leave the bases either neutral grey or in this case even unpainted. We're gonna add some astroturf from later on. But yeah, that's an adder for you. And I think it turned out pretty nice. I mean, it's not Golden Demon standard or paint competition standard at all, but for a mech that can sit on a tabletop and be played with, I'm very happy with it. And yeah, while you look at some beauty shots, I'm going to say until next time, stay safe, be kind, and do play fair. Bye!